Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to my channel. Thank you so much for stopping by and visiting. I am Angela and I find my paradise through reading. Today I am going to talk about all the books that I read in June. I read, I think 7 or 8. Let me see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There were 7 books that I read in June and 1 that I DNF'd. So we're going to talk about those. And yeah, I mean, it's been a really busy month. I didn't do as much reading as I wanted to. So I'm still surprised, and pleased that I was able to get through 8 pretty great reads. So let's just get started. So this first book, this is A Hunger Like No Other by Kresley Cole. And this was a gift. So I read this in like 2 or 3 days. And this is about this guy. His name is Lattes, and he is like the leader of the Lattes, or pretty much they're werewolves. I don't know. They're called Lattes here. But his name is Lattes. He's leader of like the werewolves, and he has been captured by the vampire horde and has been kept in imprisonment and tortured for like 200 years. And during his imprisonment, he catches the whiff or the scent of his forever mate, the person or the being that he will forever be bonded to. And so he is able to escape because he's like pursuing this scent. And it is Emmeline, and she is a vampire. So, of course, having been captured by them and tortured by them for 200 years, he is like, OMG, this can't be right. How is this my lifelong mate? But he cannot stay away from her. He cannot fight that drive or that instinct to be with her. And she wants nothing to do with him. She is just like, ill werewolf, like, leave me alone. What is your problem? So there's just that going on, and there's just all these other backstories that are going along with it. Her not knowing a whole lot about her past, and just her learning a lot about the histories of like the vampires, the Lattes, and other supernatural beings that are included in this book. So it was a lot of fun. It was definitely entertaining. There was some super saucy scenes. Wow. Really saucy scenes in here. But it was fun. It was if this is part of the series, I'm not sure if it is. I won't go on to read more from the series, but I enjoyed it. I thought it was a lot of fun. So that was that one. I'm gonna skip this one. I'm gonna come right back to it because, oh my goodness. Okay, so the next one is A Dog Year by John Katz. Look at this dog, oh my gosh. And then look, these 2 other dogs. Oh my gosh, this book, okay, this is nonfiction, and this guy, John, this is, he's a writer, and he wrote about his dogs. And in this book, there are 4 dogs, or like 4 main dogs over the course of this story. And his first 2 dogs, Julius and Stanley, they're like here. Those are his first real dogs that he had for himself. He talks about, his dogs growing up, he mentions those, but this is what it's really about, like Julius and Stanley, his 2 real dogs. And they were like perfect. Like, he had them from pups. He was an adult, a married man. When he got these dogs, he did training with them, and they were just like the most perfect dogs ever. And you're just like, oh my gosh, I love these dogs. I want these dogs. I wish they were my dogs. I mean, they're just, the way he talks about these dogs, and I just love them so much. And then he brings someone into the mix, Devin. Okay, that's this fellow here. And he was what's it called? A sheep herding dog. Anyways, this dog is the opposite of Julius and Stanley, where Julius and Stanley are so sweet and docile and pleasant and calm and relaxed, and this dog oh my god, he's a freaking nightmare. And just the stuff that he goes through with this dog, and just over the life of all three dogs, basically, it's just amazing. It was really heartwarming. It's a very not a thick book, and as a dog lover, I can always appreciate a good dog story, especially nonfiction ones, and it made me just love and appreciate my dogs, even though they're not like as fantastic as Julius and Stanley. What he went through with Devin was really like heartwarming, you know, when you're building that trust and that bond and that relationship, and you're loving that dog no matter how chaotic he is, or what he's putting you through, or the dangerous situations that he gets himself into. I mean, you just have your heart for the dog, and you're just like, when you accept that dog into your family, and it becomes a part of you, it becomes a part of your family, and you don't just get rid of it, right? You just keep working with him, or trying to clean up the messes, trying to like work with what you have, and accepting him for all his weird quirks. And I just love how he went all in with these dogs. He really put in a lot of work, a lot of effort, and he did what he had to do, and this was fantastic. So there was Devin, and then he added another dog later on into the mix, and I forget what that dog's name was. But anyways, if you're in the mood for like a very cute, endearing, funny, and sad, and just all kinds of emotions, and you're a dog lover, like, this is totally, I would recommend this. We have The Bloody Chamber, which I mentioned before. It was on my June TBR. And what I didn't know is that this is a collection of short stories by Angela Carter. And I read the first story, which kind of creeped me out, and it was just like, and that was The Bloody Chamber. I'm like, nah, okay, I wasn't, whatever. And then I read The Courtship of Mr. Lion, which is basically, it is like, it's Beauty and the Beast. So there was that, and then I went into another short story, and then I didn't even finish it. I was just like, I just couldn't get into it anymore. I wasn't really digging them. So I DNF'd it. And I mean, look at this gorgeous cover. I mean, that third short story, I couldn't even get through 2 pages. I could not tell what was going on. There was nothing, absolutely nothing that I liked about it. And I was only 2 pages in, and I just couldn't bring myself to read another paragraph. So reading should be enjoyable. And if you're feeling like you have to force yourself to finish it, why? So I might skip that third short story, see how I feel about the fourth one, and if the fourth one is just the same, where I can't get into it, I'm just gonna unhaul this book. It's a shame, because I just love the cover, and it's so gorgeous, but the deckled edges, I mean, they did a beautiful job with this book, but I'm not digging the short stories. So, sorry. Not sorry. Oh my gosh, okay. A Man Called Ove by Frederick Bachman. What can I say about, okay, how do I start? Okay, I've heard a lot about this book, obviously through BookTube, Book Talk, Instagram. Everybody's like, oh, Man Called Ove, right? Major hype. Then the movie, Tom Hanks in A Man Called Ove, based on this book. Everyone's talking about this movie, and first of all, everyone who talked about the book, they were like, oh my gosh, I cried. Oh my gosh, it's such a great book. the movie comes out. Oh my gosh, the movie. I couldn't stop crying. And so my daughter went and she saw the movie and she's like, oh, you have to see this movie. Oh yeah. I was like, well, I have the book, so let me read the book first. Then I'll watch the movie. So let's talk about the book. Oh. Okay, this is about Ove, who is an older man in this neighborhood. This is in Sweden. And because Fredrik Backman, he's a Swedish author, I'm pretty sure. And anyway, so is this translated? Author of Anxious People, blah, blah, blah. Let me just make sure. Fredrik Backman. Anyways, I don't see that it was translated. Anyway, so it follows Ove, who is an older man. Pretty sure he lives in Sweden. Stockholm? No. I guess it doesn't really matter, does it? Anyway, so he's been living in this neighborhood for like forever, 40 years, I guess. And he is so miserable and so angry and bitter and mean to everybody. And it just, this kind of goes back and forth. Like it shows parts of his past and his present, and then there's this new family that moves into his neighborhood, like pretty much right across the street, you know, and it's like a small like cul-de-sac. I'm picturing like, you know, all these houses like kind of together in this very small community. And they have, you know, like what do they call it, housing authority or housing committee, you know, where everybody has to like agree. And but homeowners association, that's pretty much what it is, a homeowners association for that little development. But he is just something else. So this new family moves into the area, and from day one they're like a thorn in his side. Like they have no concept of personal space and whatever. They're just, to me, they're just all over the place. The woman is pregnant. It's the pregnant woman, her husband, and their 2 children. And I loved the story of Ove. I loved the history of like his mother, his father, his bringing up, his young manhood, his job at the train station, how he met his wife and his relationship with his wife, and just the things that he went through were amazing. His neighbors, on the other hand, had me so angry. And I had this thing, maybe it's me being like that much of an introvert, where I have in my anxiety, when I am watching or listening, reading books or even watching movies where people have no concept of like your personal space, or they're imposing themselves in your space, it just gets under my skin. It's like nails on a chalkboard. I am like, leave this man alone. Like, stop. And he just wants to be left alone, and he's so mad. And no matter how, you know, mouthy he is or whatever, the neighbors just keep messing with him, it seems like. And they're just, and even though I'm sure they're nice, but he obviously, I don't know, I don't even know how to say it. It was the same thing with Crime and Punishment. One of the things that drove me nuts was how everyone was in Rodia's, the main character, how they were just like always in his space. And even when he was really sick, in his room, like sweating and delirious, people were just coming in his room and just standing around there talking, or sitting in his room without his permission, and just being all like in his space, you know. And sometimes, like, he even when he was just trying to get away from people, they just wouldn't leave him alone. So I kind of had that same feeling with this one. It's like, the pregnant lady, leave him the smacks alone. You know. And there were so many scenes. Like, there was a scene where this cat was like half frozen or whatever, and she like grabs him and she's like forcing her way like into Ova's house, you know. And he's like standing there and she's like, move out of the way, we need to get this cat in the house. And he's like, what, you know. And like she goes into his kitchen and things like that, where it was just like, stop. You know. Or when one of the neighbor ladies was asking if he could check her radiators, and he was just kind of like, no, or whatever. And then that brand new neighbor lady that has only been living there for like a day or two, and she's like, oh, you can do that. What? Just go do that for her. Like, lady, no, what? I don't know. So that was the worst part of the book for me, was just dealing with these people who just couldn't leave this man alone. And just people not taking the hint and just forcing themselves in your space, you know. And it's like, oh, you can teach me how to drive, you know. And demanding him take my husband fell off the ladder, take me to the hospital, I need you to take me to the hospital and watch the kids. That kind of the stuff, I couldn't deal with it. All that to say, so that was the book. Right after I finished the book, I watched the movie. Big mistake. Don't ever do that. You know what? Pick one or the other, because seriously, the movie was so different and I was so disappointed. And it's hard for me to even say that because Tom Hanks is my favorite actor of all time. Love Tom Hanks. I don't know how that movie butchered this story that badly. And there were so much key information that was not in that movie at all. They just changed it so much in so many places. I couldn't even feel that movie. I was just like, I can't. I'm like, that's not how he met his wife. It's like, they're not even telling you why he is the way he is. That's not why, you know, he's not working, or this isn't. There was just so many things that I was just like, I can't even, it didn't even end the same way. There was just so much like, so, okay. So overall for me, with all this hype about Man Called Ove, I liked the writing style. I liked the storytelling style. And maybe it's a cultural thing. Maybe that's how people are in Sweden, in small communities. They invite themselves into your home and make demands of your time and your skills and your resources. Maybe that's what it is. I don't know. But for me, it irked me really badly. So because of that, I'm going to give this a 3 stars. I loved Ove. I loved his story. It was the neighbors. I'm sorry. I wanted to throw that pregnant neighbor out of a closed window. That's how bad I was irritated. So, I don't know. But I would recommend this. I did enjoy this book. I read it in like 3 days. It was so interesting, and it was very heartwarming and heartbreaking. There was just, you know, and there was a lot that went into this book, and I did appreciate it. But it was the neighbors. Leave people alone. Just give people their space. Anyways, okay, so the other books that I read this month, I do not have physical copies of. And I wrote them down because like I always forget. Anyways, so I read Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldree. Okay, so I read Legends and Lattes, and that was so cute. That was a very low stakes kind of fantasy, and it follows Viv, who is an orc, and she was a battle beast, but she just wanted to lay her sword down, stop the fighting, stop the blood and gore, and she just wanted to open up a coffee shop. That's all. She just wanted, in all of her travels with all of her wars and battles and things like that, she had come across this one country or place that had coffee. And so she tasted coffee for the first time, fell in love with it, and that was like her dream, to open up a coffee shop. So you have this massive, like, built, muscular, vicious orc who wanted to settle down, stop traveling, stop fighting, and drink lattes. So the story just follows her finding the perfect place to set up this coffee shop, renovating, setting up, connecting with people, and no one in that area had ever even heard of coffee. So here she's opening up a coffee shop and nobody even knows what coffee is. And so she tries to explain it to this one person, and he ends up trying to summarize what he thinks he's hearing, and he's like, so you're trying to sell people hot bean water? She's talking about coffee beans being steeped in this hot water, and yeah, so he's like, yeah, hot bean water, that's gonna work. People are gonna love that. And so she just makes friends in the community, makes connections, builds kind of like a team and friendships. And it's just amazing. It's just such an amazing, amazing, sweet story. I know there's just a sequel, or is it a prequel? Something's coming out later on this year, and I'm going to pick that up. I thought this was really sweet, really, really heartwarming, and really such a cute story. Legends and Lattes. So the other one, okay, I listened to Klara and the Sun by Kazuo Ishiguro, and I borrowed that on Libby. So I got to listen to that on audio, and that was recommended to me by a friend at work. And what that is about is there is an AI robot girl. What is her name? Klara. Duh. What's her name? So her name is Klara, and it starts with her like being in the shop, in the store, waiting for someone to buy her. And she is an artificial friend. They call themselves, or people call them, and they call themselves AFs. So there are different models and different styles. They all look different and, you know, act differently, so that, you know, they can be matched with a child, and like usually like a teenager or something like that. So the teenagers will come in with their parents and look for an artificial friend. And so it's about her and the person that she ends up going home with, and that experience. And this brings a lot of things to mind. You know, it's kind of like, what is, you know, where do you draw the line, you know, with artificial intelligence and humans, you know, and making them so close to humans, or making them mimic humans to a certain degree, and what makes artificial intelligence artificial, and how, if they start displaying signs of things like faith, if they're showing like faith in something, what does that mean? And sacrifice, and there's just so much that like comes into this story, and it's just, you know, it's bizarre and interesting. And I loved how you would see her kind of observing the world. She was very observant, and that was like one of her key qualities, how she would like stand and look out the shop window and observe the world, or she would observe things in the house where she ended up going home to. And you know, her descriptions and her kind of analysis of like situations and people and signs and signals, and it was really, really interesting. It really was. It was a great story. And yeah, I'm glad I read it. So that was Klara and the Sun, an artificial friend, and how she sees the world and how the world sees her. And yeah, there were some things. I think my biggest thing about this book that I did not like so much is trying to figure out what they kept talking about. Lifted, like the kids were lifted, or if you were lifted. There was so much of this going on, and it wasn't until you were like maybe 75% through the book that they even kind of described or kind of let you in on what the heck they've been talking about this whole time. So that would have been helpful all the way in the beginning, because then you don't exactly know what the heck is going on, what the problem is, until like almost at the end. I don't know. And I'm sure that was done purposefully to try to make you think and make you interested, but it was frustrating for me. Just tell me what the heck is going on. Like, I don't want to, this isn't a mystery book where you're trying to, you know, just give us the information that we need to understand what the situation is. But that was the only thing that I'd say about that. But it was a good book. I really liked it. All right, what else do we have here? Oh, I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jeanette McCurdy. Jeanette did her thing on this book, okay? If you haven't heard about this book, you've been living under a rock, okay? Because she did her thing. So if you haven't heard, this book is nonfiction. Jeanette McCurdy is most known for her part, and she's an actress, or was an actress, and on Nickelodeon, on the iCarly show, that's kind of what she's most known for. She's had like parts, you know, in movies and commercials and things all over the place, but that was like her main thing. That's where everyone knew her from. She played Sam in the Nickelodeon iCarly show, and then after that show finished, after I don't know how many years, she got a spin-off of her own show, and it was called Sam and Cat. But this book, I mean, she talks about her childhood, her growing up, and how her mom kind of treated her and raised her, I don't want to say incorrectly, but just things were not right with her family. And her mom just really, I think, was kind of nuts. And she was unstable in so many ways. And she kind of introduced her child into having eating disorders and things like that. And kind of like forced her into acting like that's not something that Jeanette ever wanted to do. She never wanted to be an actress. But her mom was just, you know, just very manipulative, gaslighting. And you know what, Jeanette, I'm sorry to say this. I'm glad your mom died too. And your grandmom, I wonder if she's still alive, because if not, I kind of hope she dies too, because her grandmom seems like a nut. Sorry. But I appreciate Jeanette for writing this book, and it was so, and because it was on audiobook, she narrates it. She narrates the audiobook, so it's just, it gives you the whole experience in her own voice, her own story, and it was fantastic. It was fantastic. I mean, I heard this was a great book, and there was like all this hype about it, but no, 5 out of 5 stars. It deserves a hype. And she is so brave for writing what she did about, you know, just some things that were so personal, and so it couldn't have been easy to talk about this. And it was like from childhood all the way up until pretty much until a little after her mom died, when she was like trying to grapple with eating disorders and like emotional distress and just all this difficulty. And then she's talking about, you know, fame and how that kind of messes with you, and the paparazzi and tabloids, and just trying to grow up in that spotlight and having your first kiss on a show at that. You know, it was just the whole thing. You know, that poor girl, like, she just went through it so much. And her writing, fantastic. If she writes anything else, I am totally gonna buy her book, whatever else she writes, because her writing is really fantastic. And that was something that she was interested in early on as a child, like getting into writing, and something that her mom like kind of pushed her away from, like, oh no, you're gonna be an actress, like, oh, don't even like waste your time with that. So, and then her mom really exploited her for, you know, her own benefit and for all that. And it was just really sad. It was sad. And even more sad is knowing that she's not the only one. You know that this is happening with probably very many child stars, actors, singers, just children in the entertainment industry, and the parents behind them that are maybe forcing them to do things that they otherwise would not want to do. So anyways, totally, highly recommend that book, because oh my gosh, that book though, that book. Okay, so then the last book I'm going to talk about is Yellowface by R.F. Kuang. What do I say about that book? It's so interesting. Like, I read these books and I just always have a hard time trying to figure out what to say about them. So in Yellowface, we're following this woman who is a writer. She's an author. And, you know, she's trying to make it big in books and in publishing. And so then she's a white woman, and her kind of friend, more of an acquaintance of hers, she just always seems to be in the same area as this other woman, who is also a writer. Like, they went to the same school together, and not together, but they just attended the same school in college. They ended up moving to the same area, so they were just kind of always running into each other. And so we're kind of friends, but more like acquaintances. They were never really close. She was always jealous of this friend of hers who is Asian. I think she's Chinese. And so she just blew up. Like, she was like having bestsellers, getting all this attention. She was just at the top of her game. She had this amazing life, amazing apartment. And so she was just, you know, the white woman was always just jealous of this friend. And so she can't seem to come up with like good material for books. She's just in a rut. She just isn't really selling, you know, and not getting the attention that she wants, you know, from her editors and the companies that she's like kind of working with. And she's just like, oh my gosh, and then this girl has everything and blah, blah, blah. It's not fair. Long story short, she ends up, something tragic happens, and she ends up getting a hold of the Chinese woman's manuscript for a book that she was going to, which was like really good, and she ends up putting it out there as her own work. And so it's a roller coaster from there, because she stole this woman's work, put it out there as her own, and then you got social media on here. You got like people that were like bullying her online, saying that she was a thief, she was plagiarizing, this and that. It was a lot about like how social media can rip a person apart. It can destroy their career, their character, destroy them. It can, you know, like so much bullying, threats, you know, but also, you know, because like she was just really distressed about like all this, even though she kind of did it to herself. But I don't know. But also it gave you insight into like the industry, you know, and like meetings and networking and what will sell and how it will sell and who's favored, who's not. And kind of like how things work when you're like an author and you're trying to release a book. And then also about like publicity, like, because sometimes like even all of this bad publicity, they're like, oh, they were calling her racist and a thief and this, that, and the other thing. But all that bad publicity was kind of like stirring up like questions and people buying this book, you know, so sales were skyrocketing because there was so much talk about it that so it was just really bizarre. So it was like her battling with like social media and what was going on and how to like follow that. Like, how are you gonna like take someone's like really good work, make it your own, and then now people are like, well, what are you gonna write next? And then you're like, oh my gosh, now you're stuck. And then you're trying to, so she was just digging herself into like this deep hole. And then you just saw the changes in her from where she was just like a nobody, being envious of her quote unquote friend that she didn't even really like. She was just jealous of her and just always seemed to be in the area with her, to like being all of a sudden, oh no, I can't believe I'm getting attention, to I deserve all this attention. It was just a roller coaster. It was just really, really, it was good. It was it had me like, oh my gosh, if this lady, like, what is she gonna do? Is she gonna tell the truth? Is she gonna lie? Like, what is she gonna do? Like, I was like, what would I do? I wouldn't have stolen someone's work in the first place. But that book had me kind of like on edge, where I was like, that was tough. That was tough. Oh, I mean, her family. Oh my gosh. But anyways, I am running low on battery, and I think that was the last of the books. I have 3 books that I'm currently reading. I'll talk about those a little bit later. But that's it. Those are all the books that I read in June, and all kind of except for The Bloody Chamber, which I DNF'd. I'm going to give it another go in July and see how that goes. But if not, I'll just unhaul it, which I pretty much feel I'm leaning towards anyway. Life's too short. There's too many great books out there to be wasting your time trying to force yourself to read something that you're not enjoying. So that is it. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you maybe are interested in any of the books I might have mentioned and got some recommendations. Let me know what you're reading, if you've read any of these books, if you agree or disagree. I mean, Man Called Ove, it was good, but I wasn't, you know, screaming from the rooftops, everybody's got to read this book, you know, and it's gotten a lot of like hype, and it was great writing. The story was good. It was just the neighbors. So I don't know. But all right, I will let you guys go, and happy reading. Thank you so much for joining me.